I've learned that the best founders are always selling.
Welcome to the GTM Vault podcast, hosted by Rick Koleta. We uncover the strategies, the pivots, and the breakthroughs, turning startups into giants. Let's crack, open the vault, and find out how.
Today on GTM Vault, I'm joined by Michele Shepard, Chief Revenue Officer at Emburse and one of the most accomplished revenue leaders in enterprise software. Michele has scaled go-to-market organizations through every stage of growth, from private equity transformations to multi-billion-dollar exits. She's led commercial teams at Vertafore, Insurity, and Paya. And now at Emburse, she's helping redefine the future of finance and travel through AI-powered expense intelligence. Across her roles as CRO, board member, and strategic advisor, Michele has built repeatable GTM systems that align people, process, and technology, turning complexity into clarity and strategy into predictable growth. In this episode, we'll unpack how she builds high-performance revenue engines, drives alignment across functions, and scales predictability in fast-moving markets. You know what I see a lot? Companies with solid strategy, but terrible execution. They've got dashboards, reports, tools everywhere, but no one knows what to actually do next to scale their business. That's why I've been paying attention to what ZoomInfo is doing. They're not just a contact data company anymore. They built a full system of execution. They're calling it GTM Intelligence, and it actually works the list, writes the outreach, and triggers the play. No guesswork, no manual grind, just pipeline moving. Predictable growth, strategy that actually delivers. Check it out at zoominfo.com. Michele, you've scaled GTM organizations through multiple high-growth phases and successful exits. What are the consistent patterns you've seen in organizations that scale predictably and the common mistakes that hold others back?
Rick, it's great to be with you here today. And that's a great question. Part of what I do is to recognize the patterns, starting in my early days as a leader in go-to-market at Gartner, all the way through a number of software companies that you mentioned. And the consistent patterns that I see are really those who focus on the addressable market. What are the targets? Where do you focus? How do you build that opportunity scorecard to help sales, to help marketing, to help product, really focus on the things that are important, to prioritize, to laser focus on the key priorities that are going to end with a successful win. That includes looking at the TAM. It includes the infrastructure underneath, the people in the roles, the people who are going to focus on the opportunities, the tools, which we're going to talk about a little more later, the tools to support everything that they do to be more efficient and to be very targeted, to reduce sales cycles and to drive efficiencies. And then last but not least, strong operational processes across all the functions within a company. What holds others back is really not having a deliberate plan that aligns strategically with the thesis. What holds others back is not having not only those strategic levers, but an execution plan aligned to those levers and aligning with everyone that is contributing to the success cross-functionally. Those interdependencies are absolutely critical.
When you step into a new CRO role, how do you assess the state of the go-to-market engine in the first 30 or 60 days?
So the first thing I do is develop a framework for my 30, 60, sometimes 90, usually 30, 60. And that framework is a lot of listening across all of the functional areas within go-to-market. And I do that in a forum that I call an 8x8. So I'm inviting people across go-to-market to hear about what's working, to hear what new ideas they have, to hear where there's opportunities to improve. I'll take that framework of the go-to-market and ask a lot of questions. And when I'm asking a lot of questions, I'm starting to fill out that strategy, to fill out that plan, and to develop something at the end, the 30, 60, or 90-day review that really aligns with how people are thinking, how people are feeling, and most importantly, how to get everybody united behind the brand, united behind the go-to-market strategy, and united behind the go-to-market execution.
You started your career at Gartner, bridging research, data, and strategy. How did that shape the way you think about modern revenue leadership today?
Yeah, that was such a foundational beginning for me. Obviously, Gartner is a leading provider of research, analytics, and benchmarking in the tech industry. So just really a ground, a grounding of learning from a leadership perspective as well as a technology perspective. So for me, it was recognizing patterns. Although they were a leader in the market, there were clearly opportunities to grow and expand the business. And we looked at that really in three ways. One, how do you retain and delight your customers? Two, how do you expand into business units and functions that may not be benefiting from the intellectual property? And three, developing that global united motion across all of the products and capabilities that Gartner had. And I took that pattern recognition to every role and to every opportunity, going forward.
You said that strategy, growth, and value are built through the daily efforts of people at every level. How do you translate that belief into an operating system that actually scales across departments?
Yeah. So people are the foundation, right? So as I mentioned earlier, establishing the TAM is one thing. Getting the infrastructure, the right people with the right roles, with the right expectations is incredibly important. But the second thing is behind the message, understanding the why, the how we're going to accomplish our goals. So goal setting is super important across the org, establishing the brand message, the key pillars of differentiation, and all the foundational messaging and content that is required to support that. So putting those enablement plans in place, getting people to deeply understand why we're doing what we're doing and what we're going to accomplish as a result. And whether you're in development coding the application or you're frontline and center in marketing or sales, having that unity behind the goals, strategies of the company is absolutely critical.
At Emburse, you're leading one of the most data-driven transformations in enterprise finance. What does AI-native GTM look like inside a company serving global enterprises?
Well, AI is really changing the game, right? And it's come out of what you might refer to as, the trough of disillusionment, the maturity, and the rapid evolution of AI is enabling not only our products and capabilities, what we deliver to our customers and to the industry, but it's having the same impact internally. So at Emburse, we are forward thinking. We are innovative. We have created an enterprise platform, an enterprise grade platform with the security and the compliance needed to develop an AI powered product capability for our customers. Everything from reading receipts to planning your travel to categorizing and itemizing your hotel folios as just some example, and using AI powered intelligence to read those invoices, to read those receipts in a more accurate way rapidly contributes to what's next, right? So the accuracy that we are developing as a result is phenomenal. We're reading over 1 million transactions a day. That contribution actually allows for us to become more accurate, smarter, faster in the use of AI, which enables us to really focus on core capabilities for our customers and really to drive the industry forward. We can be more predictable rather than reactive. You know how hard it is to do an expense report. It shouldn't take any time at all. Our goal is to leverage AI to provide an AI-powered touchless experience so we can focus on the traveler. We can focus on, the tech stack. We can focus on all of the internal account payable functionality, and everything else will happen seamlessly. So we provide more capacity and efficiency for our customers. We're seeing 30% faster processing, 40% higher audit accuracy as a result, because we're doing everything from the beginning rather than at the end. And we're seeing over 25% cost reduction across travel, expense, and payables. So as the market evolves, we're setting the standard for what we're calling Emburse intelligence. Intelligence finance, combining AI, automation, and an open architecture that allows us to partner, to move faster, to manage costs, and to scale with precision. We're not just automating workflows anymore. We're building the intelligence layer underneath that powers the future of enterprise finance. Now, on the flip side, right, we are using AI quite extensively internally. We're using it across all of our tools and applications. We're using it with our forecasting. We're using it in our capabilities with marketing. Our tech stack, we're selecting our tech stack and swapping out our tools and capabilities that actually aren't bringing all of those AI capabilities together so that we have this intelligent portfolio to make people faster, smarter, and quicker. Examples of that are, the way that we leverage our enterprise chat GTP. So we're sharing all of the content, the messaging, the product roadmaps, the development across all different functions. So people are very, very equipped to address anything that they need to address and go to market. So learnings there would be create that groundswell, start with recognition, train on the personalization, get people actively inspired to use ChatGTP and other internal AI applications. Those are the things that are helping us move really fast internally. And then we continue to reinforce that through innovative show and tells. In marketing, we're using demand base to tell us who to send what to when, getting our overviews to our target accounts. We're seeing enormous ROI, creating 5,000 scored MQAs and saving 20 minutes per account in AE research. Google Notebooks. We had a problem showing sales what's in Marketo without spending a fortune on licenses, podcasts, writing rules. We're seeing ROI of over 100,000 saved in Marketo licenses. We're using HeyGen Consensus, which is super cool. The problem was leaders had limited time and language sets. There was need for more video content. We're saving every single day on recordings and translations and providing efficiencies for all of our leaders' time, hours and hours a month. With Goldcast, we're producing high quality webinars on demand videos and social media snippets. Outcomes, at least K saved on video editing every single time. And sanity. Our problem was alt text, meta descriptions, multiple language sites were global. We're in 120 countries. We're in 170 currencies. Multiple language sites and translations are key and critical to how we operate and connect across the globe. So for there, we're saving every single day in those translations, time in the back office, and at least 5 minutes in our webpage development.
How do you balance innovation with predictability, giving teams room to experiment while keeping the revenue model consistent and measurable?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, we talked a bit about marketing and we talked about some of the back office and some of the things that we're doing internally to serve up this enterprise grade platform. But as it relates to predictability and the ability to experiment and be creative, we're doing a lot of different things. We're using To Win for coaching and practice for our sales and solution consultants to improve their presentation skills, their negotiation skills. And we're seeing about 10 hours a month for leaders, coaches, and enablement to leverage. We're using chatbot playbooks to update and hire our SDRs, which is pretty incredible. The ROI there is about 270 plus meetings booked proactively. Nooks, cold calling, only those who pick up versus calling, hang up, right? And then with Gong, we're leveraging their AI capabilities for our forecasting, predictability, and accuracy. People can actually see where their activity is, where they need to make more connections, how impactful they are, how their journey is a mutually agreed sequence of events. The creativity part is important, giving people not only the education, which we talked about earlier, but the tools to practice, the tools to get the confidence, the tools to refine their skills and continue to invest in their own professional development.
You've led both horizontal and vertical GTM motions from payments to insurtech. How do you decide when to go broad versus doubling down on an industry vertical?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you. In every case, whether it's a horizontal technology or a vertically specific designed technology, where we started in terms of that focus and how to align in their language, in the domain, in the industry, in the line of business or the function. Align with that is absolutely critical in that targeting, in the messaging we create, in the practice that we talk about, and the professional development we talk about. So everything that we do in marketing, in sales, and even in our own product development prioritization, we are looking at the target market, the ideal customer profile, those who are going to receive the benefit of what we do. So whether it's horizontal or vertical, being very targeted and explicit about an industry, a business unit, a segment, small, medium, large, they have different needs. Some are more complex, some are more simplified. We're creating those talk tracks, those playbooks for every single one, whether I was at Gartner, whether I was at any of those vertically software-based companies, or even the horizontal technology providers.
When you unified sales, marketing, customer success, and product at companies like Vertafore and Insurity, what were the first steps you took to align those teams around one GTM vision?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think the first thing, and I just went through this exercise again as we look forward to doubling down again in 2026 here at Emburse, is bringing those leaders together in a forum and really helping them align on the thesis. What are the goals of the company? How do we develop those strategic levers? And then what do we do together cross-functionally to execute on those plans? So it's important to hear from the leaders in their words what they're seeing in the market, what they're seeing in terms of competitive threats, what they're seeing evolve in technology, so that we can share that information holistically and align in a unanimous way to build that plan and then really focus on that plan and hit the ground running. In a couple of weeks, we're doing the same thing. We started with GTM, and now we're aligning hands with our product and engineering teams in the beginning of November so that we can all cement what the strategy is, what the goals are, what those strategic levers are, and then plan out month, quarter, year, what we're going to accomplish, how we're going to accomplish it, and who's responsible for what.
And in your view, what are the GTM metrics that leaders still measure the wrong way in 2025?
Oh, there are a few. I think first and foremost, you really need to look at the segments, and you need to understand, the industry implications. So some of the things that a typical person might say is a key KPI. One KPI without the relation to another KPI can be a big mistake. An example of that would be everybody says we need 3x pipeline, 4x pipeline, but without the understanding in those geographies, in those segments, in those industries, what the implications of, deal cycles are, win rates are, that alone isn't going to be a metric that you can develop a plan to. So that's just one example. Another example might be, activity. There are different forms of activity. And we capture all of that activity through outreach and in Gong. Sometimes the activity is going to be high velocity, right? With our SDRs, our BDRs. It's going to be high velocity in the small business market. Get one shot, that message better be on. You align to the problem statement, the capabilities needed, the solutions you can deliver, and you provide a solution for them pretty fast. When you start to move up market, that might take a longer discovery time, really digging in deep to the technical requirements, the infrastructure they have, the complexity in the workflows. So really looking at these key elements in terms of activity are equally as important. And the way we do that is we've designed our sales process aligned with those segments, those geographies, those verticals, so that at every gate, there's a clear understanding of what's needed to move to the next gate. In addition to that, what are the credibility points? What are the tools? What are the deliverables that you need to provide in order to know that you're now mutually in agreement to go to the next stage? So all of that has been designed and inherent within our CRM and configured with all of the AI tools that we use. And think about it. Because we're using AI across the enterprise, all of that intelligence comes in quickly into the sales process so that people can be more focused, they can be more efficient, they can be more, right, solving customer problems, prospect problems, and coming up with the right fit, the right solution that will deliver value continuously.
You've partnered with firms like Bain, EQT, and Advent through your advisory work at MacroLab. What GTM blind spots do you see most often in PE-backed portfolio companies?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is dependent on the portfolio company, but where I've been able to help kind of goes back to those patterns, right? Is that gut check, not only across go-to-market functions, it's the analysis across those go-to-market functions, but also the interdependencies in other functions. Do we have the right message in the market? Are we going after the ideal customer profile? Do we have the right addressable market? And how does that align with the infrastructure and the organizational design? I've seen a number of companies not spend enough time on how they've designed their organization and go to market to enable them to achieve their goals quicker, faster. That does come down to having people in the right roles with the right definition. Examples of that, when you have, I call it role creep, when you have people who are doing customer success, sales, consulting all at once, you're not going to get the end result. You're not going to get the focus. When you have people in their core competencies leaning in as a team, you're going to move faster, you're going to move smarter, and you're going to deliver something that's more meaningful for your customer and for the market.
For founders or execs entering a private equity environment for the first time, what's the right way to approach GTM due diligence, both before and after the deal?
Yeah, I'd say focus on scale. What got you there before isn't going to be what gets you there to scale. I've seen founders going back to even my Gartner days come in and they've had amazing success, right? They've created a great product. They've brought in profitable income, and now it's time to scale. So leveraging, shared services, those resources across the company, super important. So many times they want to do things the same way they did them before. Remember those multiple hats we were talking about before? You see that pretty consistently in smaller founder-led businesses because that's how they had to start. They didn't have the funding to support the focus in those specific roles. So I'd say, that's piece of advice is to be more open-minded about how you scale and grow, how you develop a go-to-market plan that might be a little different in terms of how you got there before, but it's a plan that's going to help you scale exponentially.
How do you balance investor expectations for short-term returns with the long-term scalability that sustainable GTM systems require?
Perfect. That's a great question. We'll start with marketing. When I think about the customer life cycle, it starts with driving awareness, whether you're driving awareness to your customers about something new that you're doing, new capability, prospects, where you're driving awareness to your differentiation. It could be to industry experts, analysts. It could be for podcasts like this or the news. We start there, right? And short-term expectations, right? We have to drive a certain number of MQAs. We have to get X number of SAOs over the line into the hands of our sellers. We have to build on the brand, the messaging, the content. Expectations short-term and long-term. Short-term, everyone's got to be on message. We need a united front and agreement across the company. So that's super important short-term. And then fluidity throughout the cycle. Longer term might be in the segments that we play, right? In some cases, in the small market, we're producing in-period opportunity. And what I mean by that is opportunities that are brought into the cycle and closed within a month. In mid-market, that gets a little bit longer, right? In some industries, that might get longer as well. That might be 3 to 6 months. In the enterprise space, that could be anywhere from 9 to 12 to 18 months before you get through the entire cycle. So I think it's super important to know that you need to have short-term impact. We need to deliver every single day, but we also need to be aware that some things require more time. There's more complexity, and there's, different functions that need to contribute to the scale that we expect to see longer term.
And once an exit happens, what's the key to maintaining cultural and operational momentum inside the organization?
That's another great question. For me, and I've been fortunate to go through a number of successful exits and then with new private equity partners. And it's that next stage of scale. And I love the question because it's similar to the founder question you just asked, right? We have an organization that did phenomenal things. They achieved their goals. They're attractive to new investors. We're going to use this with funding to get to the next level of scale. But the same message, we can't get to there the same way we got there before. So bringing everyone together again, educating on the thesis, doing the work across leadership in every single go-to-market function, and aligning with those interdependencies and other functions like finance, product, engineering, human resources, right? How are we going to build world-class talent to carry us to this next stage in the journey? So a lot of that is the work that we discussed earlier, but it's also the messaging internally. I highly recommend, and I learned this over time. Internal reinforcement of the message is absolutely critical. It's not a one and done. It's not we all lock hands, we agreed on the strategy, we agreed on the strategic levers and the execution plan, we're done. It's having those checks and balances on a regular basis and reinforcing the messaging, reinforcing the wins along the way, reinforcing our progress, and most importantly, managing that performance in a positive way, right? We're managing performance against the goal, against the plan. You're never going to get it perfect every time. But where there are gaps coming together, how do we address those gaps? Should we continue doing? And another big one is what do we stop doing because we're not getting the results that we expected?
At Emburse, you've been vocal about the idea that AI turns data into direction. How is AI transforming the way you and your teams approach GTM strategy?
Yeah. So, I described a lot of the different tools which make us quicker, faster, smarter. But I'd also like to say more predictable. It's almost like we're drinking our own champagne, right? In the past, the applications in travel and expense management were really looking in the rearview mirror. Now we have a proactive view. AI has enabled us to provide more accuracy, catching risks earlier, giving direction so that people follow policy. And a big bonus in addition to that is reporting capabilities and audit. I can now see, is my T&E budget aligning with what we're spending real time, as an example? Are the marketing events that we're investing in providing the return on investment that we expect? Back to what we should continue to do more of and what should we stop doing? Are my people following policy? And am I making it easier for them? Are they spending less time doing these administrative things that now AI can do for them, right? AI can do the categorization, itemization, the receipt capture, lightning speed. They're spending less time doing their expense reports and more time focusing on their jobs, their roles, their responsibilities, and taking our performance forward.
So, what does it take to embed AI insights into workflows, not just for finance teams, but for sales, marketing, and customer success as well?
Love that question. And it really does align with the unification, right? Stop operating in silos. Establish a blueprint and make sure that those connections are happening across the company. We talked about a lot of tools in go-to-market, but we're using tools in product, we're using tools in customer success, we're using some of our own tools in finance and across the organization, as I mentioned. But that blueprint is absolutely critical. If people are operating in silos and not sharing information transparently, we lose pace. We fall behind. We might not be aligned. We might be making investments in tech that could be repurposed or used across the organization. As one example, we might be missing information that's critical to our success in any given function. That's another example. And we may not encourage collaboration. AI really gives us an opportunity to spend more time collaborating across the organization to be successful versus some of these, more administrative tasks or reworks, I call them. having a holistic view of your AI blueprint across functions is absolutely critical to unite the team and get the best efficiencies available to you versus operating these different functional areas and not integrating those tools in a meaningful way.
You know, I speak to a lot of technical founders, like two engineers will come up with an idea and they'll take it to market, get some early traction, get some VC money, and then they'll contemplate whether to bring in a CRO or dedicated leaders for each one of the revenue generating departments. How would you advise them to go about it? And I'm sure this is kind of based on the stage of maturity they're at, but they often are hesitant to give so much responsibility to one person within the organization. Any kind of insights you can share there?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely critical to align leadership with development, go to market leadership, and with product, in addition to the obvious, the finance, the forecasting, the budget, really allowing someone to get into the weeds of what we're providing in the market and giving them the insights to how that is resonating in the market. So I think it's important that there's collaboration and engagement across those different functions. So let's say it's two engineers, right? They've built something that people are buying and using and seeing value in. How do you get to the next level of scale? Might require more discovery, more investigation. So, you're never going to get 100% behind the doors of your organization. You only know the information and intelligence within the walls of what you're working on and the base of customers you have today. Getting the market insight is super important. We used to have, and they still have it, I believe, we called it the stalking horse methodology. Right. And I'm a big believer in that, right? What we do is we're building based on what we know. All of the data, all of the intelligence, all of the feedback, whether you're in a revenue role, product role, an engineering role, a finance role, we're placing our bets. However, until we go out to market, the horse goes ahead of the herd. What are the conditions? Are there threats? Right? Are there predators? Is there enough water? Is there enough food? Is there enough shelter for me to bring this group to this next step in the journey? That's what the stalking horse is for, right? So I think opening your mind to collaboration is really, really important, and transparency, and creating these feedback loops so that you can get to a level of accuracy in the decisions that you're making that are far better than everything you just have inside the walls of your organization. So I think it's important that, and it might be hard, right, to give up a little bit of control. But if one person is doing all the selling, love and care and feeding of the customer, all the marketing, and then developing the software themselves, they're not going to, have that opportunity to grow the business to the degree that they're capable of.
When you talk with customers, what are they most excited about? Is it speed, accuracy, or visibility?
Well, I think people generally get a little afraid of speed. That's a really good question. However, when they see it in action, they get super excited. So I'd say speed comes after the excitement of, can you provide me something that makes me more efficient, makes me more predictable, creates a level of consistency and automation that helps us operate far better than we have before. So I think once you get through those phases of how do I help you be more effective in your market, you now have a competitive advantage. Can you be more efficient, right? Can you do more with less and better than you did it before? And then how do we continually add value with the confidence that we're going to continue to invest? Those things come first. Showing the credibility that you can do those things are important. And then they get excited about speed, right? When can you do the next thing and how fast can you implement? So I would say it works really in that order.
What advice do you give GTM leaders who want to adopt AI but feel overwhelmed by complexity or data quality issues?
Yeah, I would you got to get started somewhere, right? So look at your tech stack, look at what's working, look at where, people are spending too much time doing things that aren't relevant to their roles, responsibilities, and the expectations you've given them. Take a blueprint of what you've got in place, identify areas where AI can improve across each of the functions, and create your own blueprint is, I guess, the starting point. Socialize that with the whole company, so everybody's on the same page with, we are always going to be looking for faster, better, smarter ways to support our people. Train on the personalization. It's not just implementing AI and looking at a screen and wahoo, here we go, right? Encourage people to train, encourage people to use their creativity to take AI to new heights, create collaboration across functional, make sure that that information is shared across or accessible across the organization. And I strongly encourage recognition and show and tell. We hold trainings every week, lunch and learns. We recognize our people or teams of people who are working on these innovations. We share those in our go-to-market all hands and our company town halls. We are dedicated to it, and we have consistent cadences to make sure that we're continually improving the opportunity, that we're investigating new ways, encouraging that creativity, and that we're super consistent on recognizing everybody who is, contributing to that initiative. Also, capture the ROI. With any new technology, that business case is super important, but we make sure that we are looking at the efficiencies, capturing those time saves. We're making sure that when we add value, we're capturing that in some way, shape, or form, and that we can convert that to how do we deliver value, quantifiable value back to the company.
And as you look ahead, what do you see as the next frontier? Is it predictive orchestration, human AI collaboration, or something else entirely?
I would place my bets on, we're already in the midst of the collaboration, and we've talked a lot about that here, right? The predictive orchestration is the thing that gets me excited the most. I think of AI as giving people the opportunity to open other compartments of their brain, right? You've seen a lot written about it's time to use, EQ. It's time to explore the creativity, that brings you to that next level in a disciplined way, of course. But enabling a predictive orchestration means I don't have to think about following policy, right? Because I'm being directed, inspired to do it, even though my behaviors and preferences are now taken into consideration. AI enables that, right? So my preferences, my behaviors, I'm having a more enjoyable experience while doing the right things, right? Taking the sales cycle from one step to the next, to the next, to the next, taking our marketing campaigns and initiatives through their cycles faster. AI has a big part to play in that and helping us to get more predictable, right? Who are we targeting? How do we know we're hitting the right messaging? How do we know it's resonating? All of those proof points coming together with the intelligence, the reporting, and the automation, that predictive orchestration, back to that touchless experience. Rather than keying in information, I'm gathering all the facts and I'm able to execute in a way that's far more effective and efficient than I've ever been before.
What are your thoughts on the adoption or the evolution into agentic workflows? Do you think enterprises will eventually adopt these systems and, would it lead to a mass reduction in headcount?
I do think that agentic AI is already being adopted. We're seeing that in our platforms today, right? I described an enterprise grade platform that enables, these large language modules in a secure way, in a compliant way, is the foundation by which you start. Agentic becomes a natural next step, an evolution that makes you smarter, quicker, faster. The experience I described earlier, and now we're being guided along the way, versus all of the administrative work that we had to do before, whether we were doing it in an automated workflow or not, or whether we were doing it manually, even worse. So I think that the adoption will happen fast. I think what it'll lead to in some roles, it's going to be headcount reduction, but it's also going to open up, new opportunities for other roles. Because as you scale, case in point, I doubled down on the go-to-market team last year. I'm doing it again this year, putting the right tools in place, processes, leveraging the technology in a meaningful way, not just buying it and leaving it there. Collaborating across the company actually opens up opportunities for, new roles, new responsibilities, a new way of thinking. So I think it's less of be afraid that some jobs might be replaced to some degree with AI, but it opens up enormous opportunity for other roles and other capabilities in the market.
You built and led global revenue organizations through massive change. What does a high performance revenue culture look like in 2025?
High performance revenue culture. We have one. We definitely have one. I think it really goes back to getting everyone on the same page, the mission, the vision, the goals, the strategic levers, all of the execution cross functionally, and creating an environment culturally where people know the why, right? They know the why of the company, they know the why of the function or business unit, they know how they're making a difference, how they're contributing to that vision, that thesis. Really spending the time to get that alignment and what I'll call unanimity, right? We may not all agree on the tactics, but together we're going to make a decision and we're going to move forward. So I feel like we've created that culture here at Emburse, and I've been able to create that culture in many other places, but it takes time, it takes investment. And once you put the right frameworks in place and cadences in place, and you've really listened to your people and helped show them the way, you'll get the results. You'll get them there fast. And with every transformation, I learn a little bit more, right? I learn where the patterns are, where we're going to have the naysayers, the people in the middle, the promoters, the champions, the ambassadors, and how do we all come together to get everybody there? With every transformation, I figure out the learnings, right? Well, where is there opportunity to improve? And how do I go even faster? How do I accelerate that in the next situation, whether it's the next stage in the journey, where I am, or it's, a new challenge.
How do you coach emerging GTM leaders to balance operational discipline with creativity and vision?
Yeah, a lot of that is cadence, right? Having a structure in terms of, how do you organize your day, your week, your month. It's also reflection, right? Reflecting. I'm a big believer in reflecting every day on, how the day went. Did I accomplish everything that I expected to? But also that rigor around the plan, right? We do the quarterly business reviews, we do pipeline forecasts, we do marketing campaign analysis. We probably measure everything and everything you could ever imagine, but don't get stuck in the minutia. Come back to the plan, align those things that you are seeing in your environment, how you're performing, and bring it back to the plan, bring it back to the goals, the strategy, the execution, and make sure you're giving time to the right things. So prioritization is super important. Time management is super important, and collaboration, investing the time cross-functionally to make sure that those interlocks are happening, help you balance, all of the things that you have to do, both strategically, creatively, and we all have to do tactically.
What's one leadership belief that's evolved for you over time?
I'm a huge believer in, I'd say collaboration is probably, the biggest one. Establishing the right culture, the right mindset, in addition to all the academics and frameworks we just talked about. But really getting into, the hearts and minds of, the people in the organization and making sure, they're along the journey and that they're committed to the journey. So I'm a big believer in that. I'm also a big believer in, when you are testing, when you're testing creatively, that you fail fast. It's super important not to continue to do the same thing over and over for a long period of time when it's not working, unless you've planned it out right for 12 months or 36 months, et cetera, and you're seeing progress along the way. But when something's not working, it's important to pull the plug on it before you spend a lot of people's time, money, and effort in something that's not going to result in progress for those teams. and quite frankly, doesn't inspire them.
And if you could go back to your early Gartner days, what advice would you give yourself about building scalable GTM systems?
That's a good question. I've definitely thought about that. I think it's important and it's kind of like consciously, unconsciously competent in a way, right? The thing that I started to fine tune was the pattern recognition. How do all the pieces fit together versus, looking at one silo, the next silo, the next silo, right? Looking at marketing standalone, looking at sales standalone, look at product development and constructs standalone, looking at, retention, looking at the financials across all of those things. I think, I was pattern recognizing. I was recognizing the importance of those patterns and bringing them together and then repeating them in the right way for the next thing and becoming conscious about that versus unconsciously confident about that, I think really made a difference for me as I moved on to new roles and new companies.
I'd like to now move on to the rapid fire section of the pod. One GTM metric that deserves more attention right now.
One GTM, I think it's industry specific, really looking at a deeper dive in vertical challenges in this macroeconomic environment and how do we reassess those cycles, whether it's in marketing or it's in sales. That's a big one.
Hardest but most valuable lesson you've learned as a CRO.
It's important to evolve. What worked before may not work now, and it's important to listen. It's important to invest in hearing what's going on the ground, what's working, new ideas, and where there's opportunity to improve.
Most underrated function in a modern GTM team.
Enablement. Enablement is the most underrated function. Building out enablement tools, messaging, refreshing that content, all of the role playing, engagement, not only with your new hires that are coming in, but that reinforcement of training, especially in a rapidly changing technological environment, is super important.
A book, framework, or tool that's shaped how you lead.
Well, there's so many books. I'm reading one right now by Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last. There isn't one book. Kind of back to there isn't one way to do things. You're not going to get there the way you got there before. So I'm a big believer in consistently refreshing myself on frameworks that worked, lessons learned from those who might have gone before me, and a conscientious effort to improve as a leader every day.
In one sentence, the future of enterprise GTM is?
The future of enterprise go-to-market is a collaborative environment where it's super simple to understand where you stand, where your goals are, what the impact is on the industry that you serve. It's an environment where you have access to information so that you can continually improve predictably and real time.
Michele, thanks for joining me and for showing us what it looks like to lead with precision, empathy, and data-driven conviction. From billion-dollar PE transformations to AI-powered GTM at Emburse, your playbook shows that great go-to-market leadership isn't just about process. It's about clarity, alignment, and execution at every level. If this episode helped you rethink how leadership, data, and strategy intersect in modern GTM, subscribe to GTM Vault, share it with your team, and join us next time as we explore how today's operators are building the future of growth from 0 to 1 and beyond.
Thank you so much, Rick. It was a great pleasure to be here with you today.
Tech founders and VCs, careers, lessons, GTM.